So I'm delighted to welcome Marcus and Mattias from AI Tappers to the UK AI podcast. And I'm really looking forward to understanding more about your business. So I wonder whether we could kick off with a couple of introductions. And could you tell me a little bit about yourselves and then what AI Tappers is?
Well, I'll start. My name is Marcus Cronan. I am based in London. I actually come from a background in the advertising media world. I've worked with major global brands such as Apple, Nissan, Adidas, Etihad, all over the world. So I've been very lucky. Fortunately, in the advertising career, we've worked with machine learning platforms, obviously when we're tracking people with ads and wanting to see their behaviors and things like that. So it's understanding all those algorithms and how it all works and patterns and behaviors. So I've been very much involved in the programmatic world of media for about well over 12 years now. It's time flies. And and I sort of came across AI 3 years ago while I was working for an asset management platform, and then saw this technology as an alpha tester and was completely blown away and thought this is going to change the world. And there sort of along this journey, I met Mattias within a community called the AI Advantage, and that's where he and I met about 2.5 years ago. And I'll hand over to Mattias to introduce himself.
Yeah, so I'm Mattias Herzig, and I'm from Sweden, and I have a background in vocational studies, programming teaching, so basically polytechnical. And I've been teaching for 5 years, and in that kind of roadmap or journey, I've come in contact with the AI Advantage, and then I started hanging out in the community and the Discord, which then kind of incorporated me into the workflows, and we experimented with events inside the Discord, and that and then stopped with us repurposing the Discord into a paid community, which we work together with this creator from YouTube called AI Advantage. And we have the AI Advantage community where we cover news, AI use cases, courses, guides, resources, everything where we teach AI. And we kind of try to boil everything down that you kind of get smashed with from the internet, LinkedIn, YouTube, it doesn't really matter, into like usable use cases. So you can actually use the things that is out there for your own use case. So a lot of like business use cases. That's how me and Marcus met in this process where we moved away from Discord to Circle. And that was the birth of AI Tappers out of that. And AI Advantage is still going on, and AI Tappers is still going on side by side.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about what AI Tappers does. You know, what is your sort of mission and your purpose?
Yeah. Well, I mean, our mission is to help primarily SMEs build sustainable internal AI capabilities. We do it through co-building, so we work with them. We do it through coaching and strategic partnerships. We try and avoid creating dependency. We try and empower their teams to use and enhance AI and automation for their specific business purposes. So that's really plainly what we do.
Essentially, also on a high level thinking, it's also like we go in. You have a problem with your car, you come to the mechanic. We talk through what the problems is, and we present a solution for you. But what we want in the end is for you to keep using the car and the parts you have in a good way. But we also want you to be able to fix the car next time. So we kind of, when we exit out of the company, we want you to have the skills to be able to fix the next thing with AI, or if there's a product that you want to use. So we do everything from programming automations to teaching people how to use AI. So everything in between.
So that sounds like a really interesting transformation project, or that you go in and you help your clients with. But talk me through a little bit about where you start with that. What are the things you do when a client kind of brings you on board? What are the questions you ask? What are the processes you use to really sort of ensure you're being efficient from the beginning?
Yeah, so well, that's where Mattias and I work very well together, because this is probably the most fundamental initial engagement with the client is the discovery phase. It's really understanding what it is about their business, what is their operations, what are their workflows, Where are the sort of, let's say, the plugs that are the blockages that are going on within the workflows? And then we kind of work with them in tandem to sort of figure out how maybe it's a workflow problem that they have internally, but how AI and automation, or both, can actually maybe fix some or unblock some of these things that would take more time. That would, it would lessen if we implement it with some tools, it will lessen the time for them to get from A to B. So that's how we that's a really fundamental, important part of working with the client in the right from the get-go, in the discovery phase, in order for us to then allow us to come up with the technical strategic plan of implementation and tools required. And then also in terms of like what sort of training is required at the same time to help them continue on to this journey. So those are the two fundamental steps that we look at. And then obviously at the end, once we've implemented an AI tool or an automation, it's then about optimizing it and making sure it's running perfectly, and then continuous training and updating. So those sort of the three phases that we're looking at.
Yeah, and so coming back to the technical side of things as well, how much is that a key part of what you're doing in that discovery phase? Are you sort of having to look at what the legacy systems are? Are you looking at what kind of skills and capabilities, what their tech stack is, or is that something that comes a little bit later?
No, it comes from the discovery phase as well, because we kind of know we need to know for the second phase, which is basically road mapping with them, which use cases they have, which system they use. So if, for example, if a company is locked to Copilot and they don't want to use OpenAI for the privacy policies, then you're locked into Copilot. And so you need to know what you're gaming with, so to speak, the car changes into this specific car. And so we do talk about them, like how technical they are, which tools are you using any automations already? And it's usually a no. And we in the previous companies that we worked with, it's a conversation that you also have each time you meet someone in the discovery phase, because a lot of people just know AI. And it's just AI and it's agents and it's all agentic and it's all these keywords. And then you kind of break them down for them to understand okay, but how do you actually use this? What is actually AI for you? Is that ChatGPT? Is it Claude? Is it do you even know what Claude is for a company, Anthropic? So there's a lot of things to break down together with them in the meetings as well.
Yeah, I was trying to kind of figure out whether some of the organizations you go in to work with, whether they already have a CTO or a technical team who have some understanding of AI tools already. I mean, do you find that when you go in, is there some resistance? Is there some sort of kind of reluctance to engage with that because they think they're already sort of doing AI?
Do you want me to answer it, Mattias, or?
Yeah, you can take this one.
It's interesting. Every organization is different. It's as simple as that, Tim. Strangely enough, we have a client who is nothing to do with the IT department, and he's the head of the AI for the organization. And he comes from a completely separate department and doesn't need. You don't really need to be an IT person to be head of AI. You need to really understand how the business works and how the AI models work as well, and how that can be an assistant. It doesn't, yes, we have to work with IT in terms of compliance and privacy policies, fundamentally important, but it doesn't have to be, you don't always have to work with the CTO. It's actually working with the CEO, the CFOs, the CEOs, the CMOs, and CTOs all together of how you're going to implement AI and automation in your organization, because it is a transformation that will have positive effects on the business, will have positive effects as well on employees. There are a lot of employees who, what we call shadow AI users, and we find out that they sort of, they're working and they sort of take something off and put it into their own chat GPT and then, kind of come up with a proposal. And that's a bit of a dangerous situation for any organization because you can't really, because of the data and the information, whether you're putting it in those training models or not. So we try and alleviate that by working with the clients to train the people internally to use it responsibly, to give them proper lessons, and to also, inform the senior management how we're doing this and how this is all going to work. So it's a complex business, but it is obviously very much on people's mind, and they certainly they're very keen to use it in a positive light.
Yeah, and it's really interesting hearing the two different parts of an organization here. So we've been talking about the technical side, but we're also talking about the organizational, the people side, and those two are really important. So I wonder whether we can just kind of dig into that a little bit more, and if there are some examples or case studies where when you started working with an organization, you found that it's really the challenge you face is around getting people to adopt, getting all of the workforce to actually start using it, or like you mentioned some of the examples there around they're already using it, but using it in a more consistent, secure way. Could you maybe sort of elaborate on some of the examples where the challenge has been much more people focused?
I can kind of take the lead on this, because that's where the conversation is, where it's like, okay, so a company will always say like, hey, you cannot use this, and that's it. And so they don't really come with a solution where it's like, okay, you cannot use this in this way, but you could use it this way, and we'll train you to actually understand the differences. That's a very, very big blockage with a lot of IT infrastructure, I would say. Where it's like, okay, we know what we cannot do, but what can we actually do in the playpen, so to speak?
So do you mean that the IT department is always like putting rules and regulations saying you're not allowed to do this, right?
Exactly. So like, for an example, with this bigger company, they are not allowed to use their proprietary data or NDA stuff inside ChatGPT, because they don't trust ChatGPT and privacy policies, etc., etc. So the data sets cannot be trained on that data. So what they do is they revert to Teams, which then you have Copilot, and Copilot is having a half-legged AI, and that's a very good way to see it, because it's essentially a much worse model than ChatGPT. So you're getting a 75% worse answer from Copilot. But they don't really teach them, because you could use ChatGPT if you use it in a specific way with your specific data, because you can change variables. You can change, it doesn't need to say Mattias on his health report. It can say XYZ instead, and all the data, etc., etc. So it's more about a lot of people have this way to see like, oh, I want to use this, but I'm either afraid or I'm not supposed to, and the company doesn't really come back with the training to actually be able to enable people to use the tools they want to. And then you can always have privacy policies, and you can always have restrictions, but people need to understand why. And is there stuff I can put in there? Is there stuff that I should not put in there? And really, it just boils down to having a conversation to understand how AI works and how you can actually use it either way, so to speak, without just putting all the data in there. Yeah. And that's usually depending on the size. Like the bigger size the company, the less agile it is. And it's always going to be a lot more resistance in a very, very big company, because it needs to go from point A to B to C to D to E to E, F, G. And you're going to be at H is the IT department. And then IT department needs to send this over to the CEO to take a decision on like, okay, can we use this or not? And that's maybe a 6 months period, because it's a very big company. But if you handle a company with 10 people, you're probably talking to the CEO directly, or the CTO if there is one, and you can actually have a conversation to like, okay, hey, you can use this, so maybe you should rethink this, and we can show you how, and we can train you to understand this. There's much more, for me, it's very much to have a conversation so people understand what AI actually is, instead of like, oh, it's a solution for everything. No, it's just a tool belt, which is like, okay, I can have my automation, which is a hammer, and I have a pneumatic drill instead of a pickaxe, for example. So you kind of need to train people step by step to actually use these tools to understand them, because that equips them with that tool belt.
Yeah. I mean, that's why we put a lot of weight on the deep discovery phase at the beginning, in order to help figure out the strategy. And then we can do the roadmap, before we actually implement, so that everyone's on board and everyone's aware of what's going on. And then obviously, fundamentally important is also getting them, the people, the employees internally trained to be able to use the tools that are being given to them.
That's really interesting.
I just want to add one thing here. And it's also sometimes, if there is if you work with one part of a company, it's usually that that leader of that specific part of the company reaching out to an agency like, hey, we need to do this, and we see that with this bigger company that we have a use case with. And what happened essentially is that we became a virus and we infected them with AI. So people talk and they're like, oh, but we made this more efficient. So Mattias saved 40 hours of doing a research project, which he could do in the automation instead. He pushes a button and you get the report. And that kind of goes into word by mouth. And Mattias goes to Marcus. Marcus works in HR. And like, oh, but why don't we have AI? And why can't we do this? So it's also that way of having a change management plan, which then kind of spreads. So what we've seen is that it's actually better to work on these hyper-specific cases, or I'll work on Tim's processes in work, and we can apply AI on that, and then we go to the next person instead of going to the roof of the house and you're saying we're going to remodel the whole house with AI.
Yeah, that doesn't work.
But is that about getting the sort of the buy-in and the adoption there, or is that about sort of just managing expectations? Because what I've heard a lot of times is that organizations will say things like they think AI is magic. You know, there's this expectation that it can do everything, and then when they actually try and implement it, people are disappointed because it's not magic and it can't do everything, and it's actually hard to figure out how to do it. But it sounds like what you're saying is that in order to manage those expectations, you almost want to start with smaller pilot projects or component parts, prove it works, get people on board, figure out some of the thornier issues, and then you get to the point where you then scale it into a more holistic, comprehensive solution.
Yeah, exactly that. And it's the best way. That's the best approach, because not only are you working, you know, we're not like a consultant where we say this is what you need to do. You know, we actually work hand in hand with the people within the organization. You know, we build it with them. We don't sort of build it outside and then say we plug it into you. It's not a plug and play approach. And we want to go to work with them over time and period to ensure that the AI model and that the training is happening. And of course, as the, you know, the automations and the models change on a monthly basis now, you know, it's keeping up to date with what's new, what's better, what's improved. And then, you know, it's constantly tinkering the car. That's what we're doing. And it constantly needs that. AI is not one size fits all. That doesn't exist. It's very specific. It's very powerful. It's brilliant. If it's built well and people using it are trained well on it, it really is a game changer for a lot of organizations.
There's a really good, I really like analogies and references. So I talk in references always. It's essentially like, imagine buying a membership at a CrossFit gym or a gym. You'll walk in and like go, okay, what am I supposed to do? I have never touched a bar. I've never touched a weight. I don't know what these plates do. Where do they go? You don't go and buy a Koenigsegg if you don't have a driver's license. You don't go into Formula 1 because you need to start at karting and do Formula 4, 3, 2, 1. So it's more about you actually go into the gym, you buy the membership, you talk with that coach over there that's going to take you through the beginner course, which will teach you how to handle the bar and the plates and all the weights. And it's the same thing with people. A lot of times we think like, oh, IT is something I'll just pick up here and I know this and I'll go away and continue my life. And that's it. But when it comes to our bodies, we don't want to do that because I'll get harmed if I do something wrong at the gym and I'll have a knee problem for 10 years. And so it's the same conversation and the same thing where it's that you actually need to kind of care to learn how to handle this, because you will be able to drive the car X amount much better in the future. You will learn how to actually lift weights instead of just going to the gym, going on the walking band for 10 minutes and then going home. So it's more about like having an actual plan and actually have a personal connection to actually wanting to learn it for your use case or the company, etc., depending on where the implementation is.
And I like the idea that it's a continuous process rather than just a one-off thing, because you know, you mentioned before that the way that a lot of IT projects have been run is that project-based. You know, consultants will come in, they'll sell a project, they'll deliver a project, and then they're gone. But actually, with the way that technology is changing, means that you can't do that. One, because technology is changing continually and will continue to change, but also because the people, and using your analogy, you know, the people, if you were to actually just try and force them to go from 0 to 100, you'd break them, like you break your body in the gym. So you have to think about it all, with that sort of almost that personal coach. And I think in the beginning you mentioned that word coaching, and that for me is kind of what you're describing here, which is a really unique way of looking at this. That's actually coaching companies to go through this process rather than just kind of coming in and being a consultant. So could you sort of talk me through a little bit what the key parts of that coaching and maybe some of the training are that you provide to your clients?
Cheers.
You can start if you want to. It's everything. So essentially what I've been doing in the community, we kind of take part of that and we create this for the companies. Essentially it's training how to communicate with the AI. It's really easy to like, hey, I want you to create my assignment in a Word document. Thank you, bye. And then you get a document, that's fine, but you can fine tune this to an extreme extent for it to actually write in your own style and how you actually write all your emails. You can make an automation that has a fine-tuned model to create email drafts for every email you get flagged with something. So it drafts that for you, but in your specific writing style, because it's trained on how you write. So there's a lot of training in prompt engineering, how to understand how much you can write with an AI without getting, how long you can drive the car without switching the oil, so to speak. That's a very good analogy for context window. So it's a lot of these small parts to understand how the AI works for you to use the AI the right way, because it wants to be used. It's compliant, so to speak. It wants to help you, but it can help you in a way, way, way better way if you know how to convey your questions. And an analogy we've been using is that if you give an intern a shit description of its job, you're going to get a shit outcome of that. But if you give that person coaching and like, hey, you should do your job in this way and this way, and you can do this and you can add this and you can do this way, that job is probably going to result in a very, very good job. And it's the same thing when you talk with an AI.
Yeah, and just to add to that, so what else we find is very, very helpful is that once we build sort of an assistant, let's just call it a marketing assistant, we then work with the marketing team and we say, okay, here's a new product, here's a new brand, and we want to launch it. Okay, we call it X brand, and what we do is we work with the people within the marketing department with our AI tool that we built with them. And then we go through the whole process with the AI in there. So everyone's working collaboratively around this AI brain about launching this product. So it's going to enhance the thinking, the creativity within the team a lot better, because you have to use your creativity in order to use the creativity of the AI tool. So working together collaboratively on let's say a small launch of a product or something like that, bringing AI in there right from the beginning of the phase, not something you just add on in between parts here and parts there, but you put it in from an AI first perspective and see how that can help and enhance the idea and the ideation and the delivery and production of all the products. So that we find is a really, really helpful and really kind of fun as well. A lot of people really enjoy doing it as well. Where they're working with the AI tool and they're thinking about it and they say, oh, it just said this, and we came up with this idea. Oh, it took my idea, but it made it even better. And they really, really fundamentally see the joys of that spark that they give it, and it adds another layer of spark on top of the idea that they came up with.
Yeah, and I love that sort of that scenario you're describing there, because I can visualize those people going on that journey. And a lot of this is about confidence, right? They start off thinking they don't know anything. They have very low confidence. But what you're describing is that exactly that coaching thing again, where you're giving them the environment in which they can learn. You're giving them permission, but you're also guiding them. You're putting them with their peers. You're making it collaborative. You're making it fun. And they go through it, and it's okay to make a few mistakes because they'll learn, and you're telling them that's okay. They come out of that having done a few things, and then they've got a level of confidence that will allow them to take the next step.
Exactly.
It also allows them to see the use cases in other processes as well. So you might be birthing like a new project or a new product because they can think like, hey, I could use help to get a agent here or an automation to do this specific process as well, because they understand how the AI works and what it's possible to do as well.
Yeah. I mean, you know, which what we inadvertently doing is building sort of AI first teams within the organization. So for instance, like the scenario I gave you, you know, you start research with AI. You then enhance from the research, you enhance your, you know, your brainstorming with AI. You then create prototypes from the brainstorming ideas with AI. You do your design strategy with AI, and then you try and, you know, augment the execution a little bit with AI. And then you do it, you know, however the process you go through it. So, you know, in a way, you're building out within the organization, within your own team structure, an AI first team. And then within that, we discover AI champions. Actually, we find out there are sort of, you know, AI enthusiasts who actually been doing things on the side, building mid-journey images and stuff like that. And they really got a good comprehension of how to use it. They suddenly come out of their sort of like AI secret world, and suddenly they are the AI, you know, leaders of their team, basically, which is really helpful. So it also uncovers, you know, people who think, you know, oh, I'm just a geek doing AI, but actually it's very useful within their own business organization. And if they can be AI champions within their own department, well, that's just much more helpful.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that idea of having those champions across different departments, because I suppose it's not just the traditional departments of technology or even marketing that you maybe expect. I think it's, you know, finding those other champions and then giving them the confidence to kind of share and be enthusiasts across the whole company. Can you give me a sense of what the sort of typical length of an engagement is with you? And we've talked, it's not just projects, but does this mean it's kind of like almost like an ongoing monthly kind of thing you have?
Yeah, it has to be monthly. I mean, alone, you know, just in the discovery phase takes at least, you know, 4 weeks for us to get really underneath the hood of the organization to understand it. If we're talking about a big organization, if we're talking about smaller, it's obviously half the time, but the intensity of the understanding and the learning of the organization is very, very important. And that takes time. I mean, you know, I always say to people, in the traditional old way, building a platform took a lot longer than creating the strategy of the platform. You know, this platform will do, you know, deliver A and B. Whereas with AI, it's much more of a strategy and thinking side of things. And the build is actually a lot quicker and easier than the old building a tech stack beforehand. So we find, you know, once we get the strategy, once everyone's aligned on that strategic upfront part, then Mattias and the team, they go off and build a really, really specific Formula One car. It's amazing how that works. And it's really important. So if you're looking from a general perspective, we can, you know, from start to finish, we could build an assistant within probably 7 to 12 weeks, I would say, in an AI assistant, knowing that thing. But then it's about the continuation. It's the ongoing engagement. And how does it fix automation? It's a journey. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And we want to work with organizations that have that ethos and that really want to become an AI first organization with their employees. And we want to really help work with them as part of their team rather than plug and play. Oh, here we go. Because it's just there's going to be problems, you know, there's always is.
We're going to have to wrap things up in a minute, but just sort of one last question, which I think just follows on from what you've been talking about. If I was looking at bringing you guys on board to help me transform an organization, I think one of my questions would be, well, what are the outputs? What are the KPIs going to be if we're going to doing this on a monthly basis? And I'm sure you get this asked this all the time. So could you kind of help us understand what are some of those outputs, metrics that your clients are really interested in measuring? Because I imagine it's quite abstract sometimes.
Mattias, or do you want me to go?
I can start off with the abstract one. How do you measure time? Time doesn't equal money in all the equations, but it usually does. But the problem here is that we want to care about the people inside the companies as well. We don't want to switch out Tim for automations. That's not what we kind of aim for. So the culture for us is to equip people with AI, and then for that person to maybe concentrate on more the creative stuff or the like the meetings with human stuff. So all the manual work that you can automate and you can get a bit quicker output on, for an example, getting a research document or generation or etc. As in, like, I need to spend 40 hours in a week or a month to research other companies, how they do in this specific process, and for us to do some R&D on how to make that process easier for us. That's a 10-minute workflow in AI instead of 40 hours. So what you're doing essentially is that you're saving 39 hours and 40 minutes or 50 minutes. What can you do instead? How can that person then go out and do its best job in a much funnier way, in a much funnier setting, with human beings, probably instead of sitting by the computer or doing something else, and generate money because that's the golden throne, so to speak. That's ROI everyone is looking for. To go out and actually then double your time effectively doing things that can actually get you money into the company, instead of doing, I need to research stuff in a stagnant setting that won't generate money.
Yeah. So with an example, just like with the research, we have one client that basically mid-level research analyst, very clever, very bright, told us how many hours, days, months they spend on research, and we've automated a research document for them, and he was blown away that we could get it. Okay, it took us about 2 to 3 weeks to build it, which is fine, but now when he just pressed run, he's got a global insights on the industry that he's really interested in within 2 minutes. Now he can pivot his time and energy, or maybe starting the engagement process with that potential client or that company they want to buy. They can then do double their research and find, let's say we want to go in another industry. So he's speeding things up, but the human is also much more able to get on with actionable items rather than doing mundane research. And, obviously the research analysts will check with the AI to see whether the sources are correct, whether it's actually making the right thing. And it will needle in the haystack sort of checks to make sure it's doing the right thing and getting the right information, so the information is correct. So the actual human job will be slightly repivoted into a different direction, which is much more beneficial and useful for the company, and for themselves as well in terms of their growth.
Yeah. Wow, amazing. I think there's so much to take away from what you've been talking about. It's been really interesting to hear your approach. You're combining the transformation with the build, and you're bringing in that coaching layer on top of it. And I really like the analogy with the Formula One car as well, because as you were talking, I was thinking, well, yeah, absolutely, because it's not just a one-off design. You don't just design the Formula One car and then that's it. It's constantly being fed data from every single sensor on the car, which then goes back every week, and they're refining and changing things. And that's what you're doing. You're sort of collecting all of that data from the organization and then using it to refine or help the people to be refined. So it's that constant optimization process. And also I kind of love the way you're doing it with that sort of coaching mentality as well. That the ongoing way to really engage people and to drive that transformation in a very human way. So just to kind of finish things off then, I wonder whether, Marcus, you could tell us, how can we find out more about AI Tappers and stay in touch with you?
Yeah, so we currently just redoing our website, so our old one is up there right now. We're going to have a freshened up one. Mattias and I are both very active on LinkedIn. You can find us on our LinkedIn profile, which is just type Marcus Cronan and Mattias Herzig. And we, like normal human beings, we take phone calls. We take emails. We don't have to automate that part or anything like that. And we like talking to people. And Mattias is based in Spain and I'm based in London. And we rather travel to the clients and go and meet them face to face and talk to them properly and get to know the organization. We're very much hands-on in that regard. We find that really fundamentally important as well.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much to both of you. It's been fascinating to hear about your business and the community and how you're approaching this transformation and helping to build AI capabilities in these organizations. So thank you both very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.